Hello, everybody, and welcome back to NWCL Beyond the Boundary. My name is Cody Donnelly, and today I'm joined by Farnworth Social Circle's first team captain, Chris Walsh. How are you, mate?
Hi mate, how you doing? All good, thank you. Yeah, very well.
Brilliant. So, obviously, we had Jimmy Stewart last year. So, what I'll just get you to do is just introduce yourself. So, just tell us a bit about yourself and your involvement at Social Circle.
Yeah, sure. Chris Walsh. I've been at Social Circle since I was 8 years old, so that's quite a long time, given nearly 40 years actually. So yeah, I've been there, man and boy. Played through the juniors, grown up through the seniors. I think I've retired about three times to my wife's dismay. I'm back in the senior side last year, and enjoying it. Yeah, I'm enjoying it in my head. My body's enjoying it less so.
Brilliant. So, obviously last year you had a very successful year in the league, league champions, very close season with yourself and Reid. Going to the last game, fortunately it did get rained off. So you came out the winners in the end. So can you just talk about last season and how good it was it to actually win the league?
Yeah, I think we surprised ourselves, really being honest. I thought Reed probably over the course of the season were a really strong side and probably deserved to win it. Really, they beat us three times. So on the balance of games against head to head, they beat us quite comfortably two out of three of those times. So I think it was a good battle with them. I felt it was theirs to probably lose in the end, and we just stuck in there and just kept winning games, nicking games. And as you say, it went right down to the wire, really, with I guess the last game of the season was rained off, but for us the huge game was Padium in the penultimate game of the season, which we managed to get over the line, and that just put us in front. But yeah, a really enjoyable season. So many ups, so many downs. Glad to be back at that kind of real competitive edge of cricket, which I've missed for a while, but really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and obviously you're not shy to win the league. Obviously you won the Bolton League quite a few years ago now, but you look at your team now, and we'll speak about the juniors in a minute, but you've got quite a lot of senior players, both of which who played when you won that league. So you got the likes of yourself, Dave Mather, David Tong, Chris Barrow. How did these contribute to your success having these experienced players in your squad?
Yeah, huge. So yeah, we've won. Me and the lads you just mentioned, we've won four league titles. I think Chris might have won five because he won one at Farnworth. So we've won a lot of league titles between us. We're very lucky. We don't take that for granted. I think what we add to the team is that experience that comes with winning a title, competing in games, and just what you can add then to the young lads and to the team as a whole. So and also from a personal perspective, it's really nice to be able to still play with your mates that you grew up with and the mates that you've kind of won things in the past with as well. So, but they're very valuable cricketers. They're very talented. Still, they're very experienced, and I think that's really important in balancing your side. Is you've got that experience balanced with youth.
Really, and you know, I've done this obviously last season. I had quite a few people. No, but you did have Jamil, who did very well. We'll speak about him in a minute. But you didn't have an overseas last year. I speak to loads of clubs, and they always say how good the overseas are, and usually they play a big part in their club success. How did you find not having overseas on Mitchell last season?
Um, I felt like, again, I didn't expect us to win the league. I think we would all come into the league last year expecting to compete for a top four spot and be competitive. Um, I felt that an overseas in our side, a batting overseas, would have certainly strengthened us to go and really compete. And we did, we obviously competed, but ultimately I think it would have made us stronger. I think generally the standard of the overseas and the league has been really strong. I think it's definitely added value to the overall quality of the league and really raised the standard. There's some really good cricketers at an overseas level that are coming over and plying the trade in this league, and that's really good to see. Interestingly, this year we are going down the overseas route, just to kind of build on what we did last year and just try and strengthen. So I think having the option is for this league is a really good one because if you can get them embedded in your club, they can come with some experience. I think Little Lever have proven it with many real top quality overseas that have really formed a big part of their team. So and other teams as well. So that's what we're looking at trying to do this year.
And have you confirmed overseas yet, or is this still in the pipelines?
We're nearly there. We've had a we've had quite a week or two in terms of a few last minute changes for one reason or another. But so we're nearly there and confirming the overseas, hopefully this week, ideally, if not into next week, but certainly before the start of the season. Um, yeah, and ideally we're done with no more movements as we're only 3 weeks away.
Fantastic. I'm looking at last season. You had four amateurs who got over 500 runs, which is, it's quite unheard of. Chris Lane, Max Perry, David Tong, and Basil Sultan. Do you think these kind of fed off each other's success last season in terms of, you've got a fantastic player Jamil, who's kind of your kind of the person who's you're looking to score your runs, but these lot scoring runs really did contribute to your success last season, didn't they?
Yeah, I think you need that, right? So Jamil is without doubt an outstanding cricketer, without doubt. I've said before, I think he's the best pro in the Northwest. I think you have to still have lads around him that can contribute bat and ball, and that's what we did. There were kind of jokes on the side about Jamil Stewart CC. That I've said before, it doesn't really bother me, right? It's good investment in your pro. That's what you're there to do. So, but that doesn't mean you can win a league with just your pro. You have to have lads chipping in. You mentioned those four. Chris Barrow had 400 and odd runs in 17 innings, and then lads chipped in with wickets. Mather, Lewis. Fez can do. So lads have chipped in with bat and ball around Jamil, even though Jamil did have an exceptional season. And I think that's important that those lads kick on and go again. And Jamil's infectious by the way he plays cricket, and the lads want to kind of build on that. So that's on the field and off the field.
Yeah. And on Jamil, and if people are watching this, we did interview him last season, so you can have a listen to that. It was a very good interview. But this season, 2,048 runs, 50 wickets. We always knew he was a fantastic player, and he's done it continuously over the last 3 or 4 seasons. But even last year, I think he got a double century twice. I felt he went for a pearl patch where we were just getting centuries after centuries, and in a way, he felt unstoppable. How, and he's obviously really invested into the club as well. He doesn't just turn up, does it on a
Yeah.
match day. He's invested into the whole club. In the last 3, 4 years at the club, how well has he actually done both on and off the field?
Well, I mean, his stats on the field speak for themselves, and that's well documented. And you're right. I think his season last year was potentially unprecedented in terms of the number of runs he scored. I think 5 centuries, 850s, including two doubles. So like some significant amount of runs, match winning innings. Um, Off the field, he's been with us 4 years, so this will be his fifth year, right? So he's been with us a long time, and he influences the juniors just by way of them being in awe at him when they're watching him on a Saturday afternoon at home. He influences training because he's a big part of the junior setup by way of coaching. He runs the under 15s team. That's the team that he's had designated for him for 3 or 4 years, and that's paid dividends in terms of the lads that he's coached. So his influence off the field has been significant. And even from a commercial perspective, we kind of ran some numbers. And when we're at home, we make significantly more money over the bar than when we're away or when we did prior to Jamil being part of the club. So he's entertainment, right? He's got that kind of X factor that people, even if you don't really know much about cricket, you just like seeing someone smash the ball out of the ground, right? And it's fun. So he's been a big influence on the club, and that's why we wanted to secure him for another 3 years, which we've managed to do. And that's really positive for us as a cricket club.
Yeah, and you mentioned before about the Jamil Stewart CC, just not looking at it, just concentrating yourselves. Over the last 12 months, that you had people saying Jamil's joining this club, Jamil's joining that club, and he's turned out to sign a 3-year contract. Is this something that obviously yourself do, but can he just stay away from that and just concentrate on his own game? Because you're talking about some what social obviously a big club, but you got other big clubs around the leagues. How not for your contract, how good was it to actually keep him here than go into a local rival, for example?
Yeah, look, he had a lot of interest, as you can imagine, coming at the end of his 3-year deal throughout last summer, back end of last summer. A lot of interest from a lot of leagues, as GMCL and Liverpool Comp and Northern League. So a lot of interest. But ultimately, and Jamil will tell you this himself, he's got to be happy at his cricket. He's got to be happy in terms of settled, and he's very settled at social. If you look at Jamil's career prior to coming to social, he hasn't played at loads of different clubs year on year. He hasn't moved every year. He's looking to try and create some stability on the field and off the field, and he feels comfortable that he can do that. I think he also sees the investment he's made off the field with the juniors and stuff, that they're now starting to come through, that there's an attachment there, right? Cricket's cricket, but also it's deeper than that. You create relationships with people that ultimately you want to then see through in terms of how you can achieve things. So it's a big thing for him to be part of this cricket club, but I don't take that lightly either. We've got to keep our commitment to continue to be competitive, continue to invest on the facilities as much as on the field. And that was the conversation that we had. He had some really lucrative offers, as you can imagine, but I think the broader picture, deeper than just cricket, is what Jamil has based his decision on. In addition to us making that commitment too.
Fantastic. And when people found out for your contract, a lot of NWCL ballers looking at that thinking, got to run in again, get smashed for six, 20 or not, 20 over and over. So I don't think they'll be happy, but I think for the whole league, it makes the league way more competitive and it's fantastic to see.
Yeah,
But,
great.
we mentioned the junior players before, especially in your first team, you mentioned a few before, but in particular, your son Archie, playing for Lancs, playing for Interleague, and last season was his first full season in first team, and he did well, especially for someone the junior, 285 runs and 27 victims. How nice is it to see to watch him and actually be in the team where he's developing into hopefully a fantastic player.
Yeah, it's nice. It is nice as a parent. We had to agree that when we start driving to cricket on a Saturday morning, or we're training on Tuesday or a Thursday, that we're not dad and lad, we're like captain and player, or we're players together, that you put them boundaries, because it can be quite tough being a parent and being a son. You can probably be a bit too hard on them. So we made the ground rules pretty clear early on. We were captain and player, just like it would be with me and Lewis, or me and Jamil, or whoever. So we put that to one side and it worked really well. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough gig, right? When you make that step up to first team cricket in any league as a junior, it's a tough gig. It's more intense. It's quicker. There's better players. You don't want to let your side down. You've got your own kind of development still that's ongoing. And actually wasn't the only one. We had Lewis Whittle, who had his full second season last year, and again grew and developed into a maturing cricketer for us, as well as Fez Kandu, who's since left us. But we kind of continue to invest in that youth. It's a big part of what I was part of, and those lads you mentioned before, the Barrows, the Parkinsons. It's always been a very strong DNA of our club that the youth will come through and figure in our senior teams.
Yeah. And you mentioned as well there, 32 wickets last year than the year before. And at that age, you're only limited to five, six, seven overs on
Yeah.
the trot, so like six on, six off. As an opening bowler, it's obviously quite difficult. You get into your fourth, fifth over and you get into rhythm and you have to come back off. How do you think he's adapted to that just to, whether it's something he has to adapt quickly to the game, and how well do you think he's done overall?
He's done well. It is hard when you can only bowl short spells, because Lewis is a traditional fast bowler, so he has to get into a rhythm. We've got to really wind him up before you even get him into his first over, right? So whether that's in between innings at lunch, he's got to kind of put a few balls down to get himself going. So I think sometimes it can feel a bit stop start when you're having to come off and you're feeling some good rhythm. But he's used to that, right? He's used to it when he plays at Lancs or he plays for us. He's learning all the time. He's starting to manage his frustration better than. So I played a few games with him, second team, a good few years ago, and that frustration could get to him a little bit. But it's also part of his game. It's part of his strength. So he's got to just channel that in the right way. And he's a big asset for us. I have no doubt he'll come on again this year. He's had a really good win to Lancs under 18s, and I'm pretty sure he'll come on again and be a big part of this team, leading our attack this year.
Fantastic. And now looking ahead into 2026, only a few weeks away now. Can you talk about, new signings, expectations this season?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's been a bit of a turbulent few weeks actually, with for one reason or another. So we we were going down the path of a certain overseas, and that fell through. So we've kind of pivoted into an Indian all rounder that we're looking to secure, like I say, hopefully this week. So he'll fill a gap for us with bat and ball. Chris Lane has left the club. That's happened pretty quickly. Um, Josh French had, who is also a junior at Social, had gone to seek an opportunity at Lytham Cricket Club because we couldn't facilitate a role for him. So now Josh is coming back. So it's probably disappointing for Lytham, but it's, with Chris Lane leaving, it's presented a great opportunity for Josh to come and play in our top order and really show us his skills as a young lad. And again, commitment to what we talked about, trying to give these young lads a game where we get the opportunity, and that's come about now. So we're delighted to have Josh back. We're hopefully going to get the overseas done over the line. And other than that, it's the same. It's the same squad really that we've got over the course of the season.
Yeah, and going from winning the league last year, which you probably did weren't expecting to do, but you did, and coming to this season, you come in with maybe a bit of an expectation. You've set yourself for such a high standard. The kind of way is only way is to you can't really go further than that unless you would to win Hamer Cup, T20 Cup, for example. How difficult do you think it'll be to actually manage that expectation this season?
Yeah, I think again it probably goes to the experience of the older lads in the squad that have been there and done it and kind of won a league the season before and going into a new season. So I think for me, it's not about setting your sights on winning a league. We certainly didn't do that last year. What I wanted to do this winter, which as I kind of just said, like I wanted to make us stronger than where we were last year. So just improve on the all round skills of the side and try and ensure we can score more runs and we can take more wickets. And I think ultimately where we will end up if we do get the overseas sign will be a stronger side than where we were last year. So all you can do is make yourself stronger. Commitment from the lads you asked the same. There'll be more games this year. Lancashire Knockout will play a part, hopefully. So for us, game by game, go and win your games of cricket. Right, this is a really competitive league, and I think it showed that last year that we won a league having lost 6 games. That's quite rare. I don't think I've won a league where we've lost 6 games. So I think that shows the competitive nature of the league, top to bottom. And you've just got to be prepared every week and take every game as it comes. If you get on a bit of a roll, try and really kind of ride that. And if you lose a few, you can't get too low, right? You've got to bounce back quickly. So for me, it's every game, learn from the things that we did well last year, learn from the things we could have done better last year, and just take it into the season.
Definitely, and looking ahead into the new season, obviously it's going to be very tough. We've got obviously you got re-strengthened, Leicester strengthened. How well do you think they will do compared to yourselves? Obviously, I think it's top four, top five for Lancs knockout again. I'm sure that'll be aim again. But have you actually set expectation on boys? You say you want to get better. Is that just get better? And if we win the league, win the Hamer Cup, whatever, is that something that you're just hoping to do?
Yeah, I don't think you can be too. Everybody would like to win something. So if you spoke to Little Lever and Reed, I'm sure you have, like, they will all tell you they'd like to win something. But I think if you focus too much on winning something rather than the process of how you're going about playing your cricket, what culture you're creating, how well you're training, managing the lads in a way that's picking them up when they're a bit low. And I think then the winning just comes, and that's game by game. And it could be a competition, it could be a cup, it could be. So for us, I think we know we've strengthened, but you've cricket's not played on that bit of paper that you put in at the start of the game. It's played on grass, and you've got to make sure that then you all come together and do your job. So I'd like to think we're competitive again. I'd like to think we're competing in that top four consistently throughout the course of the year, and we can be the ones that puts our noses in front again and have a strong cup run. A bit disappointed in the cup actually last year that we didn't get past the first round. That was a bit disappointing. So, there are opportunities for us to do better, and that's all we can do.
Brilliant. And looking ahead into your T20 season, I think last year at Tonga, anyway, Max Perry was captain. Is he designated T20 captain, or is that just to cover for that game?
No, Max is our vice captain. So Max is again a social lad who he's still only quite young, 21, 22. So he's a young lad. He's had a good few years at first team cricket now. He was thrown in quite young and he learnt the ropes. And he's a massive part of our team in terms of his batting and his fielding is incredible. So he's a huge part of our team. He's a huge part of our future. So Max is hopefully picking up and learning things from all the experienced lads, Jamil, learning things what not to do because we all make mistakes, right? So and trying to apply that in this year and last year in the T20 comp as captain to learn, and then there'll be opportunities to take that on, in the future. And I'm pretty sure he'll be well equipped to do that when it comes along.
Brilliant. And just looking at yourself now, you went from first team keeper, as captain, winning the league, holding the Bolton League, victim record at 702, never to be beaten. And you went from that, and I think you had a bit, you retired, and you came back into the second team. You've taken wickets for fun, you was getting runs, and now first team captain. How would you describe your transition into, going from a wicket keeper to taking those wickets in the second? Was that something that you always knew you were capable of?
No, not really. I'd never really bowled before, so I'd kept for 20 years first team. Um, I'd kept to some brilliant bowlers, so I always think your keepers are just as good as your bowlers, right? You need them chances. So I kept some really good bowlers. I'd seen a lot of bowlers bowl, and I think all keepers think they can bowl. So I probably had that mindset of, I think I can do this. And then when I did play a bit of second team, just a little bit of probably coaching experience in terms of how to swing the ball and put it on a spot. And, you know, I'd like to say I taught Dave Mather everything that he knows, but I didn't. He certainly taught me a thing or two when I did start bowling. So, but I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed certainly my first team career back then. I enjoyed the second team little short stint with the lads that I played with, and I never expected to come back. I never expected to come back and captain the side. I certainly never expected to come back and win a league. So to be having to go at a second season is, I think it's opportunistic in terms of where we're at as a club. So that's one thing to point out. But um, I'm fully prepared for the season ahead, and who knows what this season may bring. And hopefully we'll be competitive, and who knows.
Mm. Yeah, and obviously as captain, you're going from the wicketkeeper's captain, you're involved in the game, you're very much in the centre of it, and then you come back to that where you're not a keeper, you're playing bit of a different role. You're batting a bit lower down. How would you say that's affected the way you captain, or how easier it's made it, or perhaps harder?
Um, I don't think it's affected captaincy. I mean, as a keeper, for those who keep, you're in the game every ball. So as a captain, you see everything. You see the batter's movement, you see the bowler's action, you see what the wicket's doing. You can set your field. So you just take a bit of getting used to because there's a lot going on. So but you do see everything. It's very different. I don't do as much as I used to do, second team or first team, obviously, but that wasn't the reason I came back. I didn't come back to take a spot and do anything. I came back to try and add a bit of value and experience from a captaincy perspective, and that's hopefully what I've done, and added a bit of kind of discipline and um, commitment through the team that maybe we lacked a little bit a few seasons ago. So that's what I've come to do. Captaincy is difficult off the field as much as it is on the field, let me tell you, right? So managing people on the field actually is far easier than sometimes dealing with some of the stuff you have to deal with off the field. And I'm sure many captains in this league will echo that. It's a difficult gig. But I enjoy it. I'm grateful for the opportunity. And we'll kind of see where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the Norfolk Cricket League, we touched on the competitivity before. When it got announced in November 2022, if I'm not mistaken, what were yours and Social Circle Sports towards it? As it's something completely new, and now we've perhaps shown that we are perhaps a sustainable league, and it's shown to be quite competitive as well.
Yeah, I came out of the old Bolton League, right? So I'm an old Bolton League cricketer by nature, and it was a very competitive league. It was a very strong league against other leagues. It held its own in the ranks knockout consistently year on year. We had some really quality players. So when it kind of when I retired the first time, and I felt the structure was kind of created a bit of a decline in that quality. I felt that was through that period if I'm looking from the outside. But I think the decision to join the Ribblesdale League was a brave one. But I feel that, again, from the outside and then latterly playing, it's definitely been the right decision to strengthen the league with that cohort of Ribblesdale League clubs who equally have bought into it. I mean, invested in their teams, invested in their grounds, and I think it's made it really competitive. Certainly much stronger than it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Um, I don't really buy into all this nonsense about GMCL's better, Liverpool comp's better, Northern League's better than ultimately it's about league cricket, right? It's about trying to provide a platform where cricketers can advance and develop and ply their trade. Every league should respect each other's league in terms of the quality and the opportunities that it brings. So yes, they'll be vying for positions in terms of who's the best league in the Northwest. I think it's probably more club specific for me. If you look at some leagues like your Liverpool comp, it's Northern and Ormskirk every year. There's no other team competes in that league. So you can tell me that's the best league in the Northwest, but is it really competitive for everybody else? I don't know. So I don't like the idea of leagues competing against each other. It should be about kind of mutual accountability to put on a platform for people to be able to play cricket, competitive cricket, and enjoy it. That's the key thing.
Definitely, enjoyment is the main point. We don't turn up on a Saturday to not enjoy ourselves, and GMCL will certainly be good for some teams in that. Some other teams might be worth perhaps in maybe a smaller league in comparison in an North Recruit League. All has its pros and cons, but
Yeah,
I've done this with quite a few people, so I'll go through some quick fire questions now.
sure.
So, who's the best amateur you played with and against?
Um, I'm going to say the best amateur is Chris Barrow. I've played with. Over the years I've played with him, he's the most impactful player bat and ball that I've ever seen. And I'm going to have a bit of a cop out and say the best amateur I've played against is Matt Parkinson. Very similar to Chris Barrow, both social lads I appreciate, so a little bit of bias, but Parky in his day was one of the top batters at 4 or 5 in a really strong walking inside, won everything. So you talk about winning league titles, I think he's won about 7 league titles, and a top off spinner as well. So both real strong competitors and massively impactful in games of cricket.
Yeah. I think Jamil said Chris Barr as well does the basics very well, and that's the most important. Played only not many games last year and still, very, very good player even now. And next one, the best pro that you've played against.
Brad Hodge at Farnworth when he played, I can't remember the year, 97, I think it might have been. He wasn't known really then, other than an up and coming Australian. Scored 1,400 runs, I think, in a really high quality league back then. Just class. And keeping as well. You stood up to the stumps and watching him bat. Masterclass. Top lad as well. Really good lad.
Brilliant. I assume the best pro you've played with Jamil.
Well, yeah, yes, in terms of, I guess, length of time. Um, but I was lucky enough to start my career with Rod Eswick. So Rod Eswick, who, funnily enough, was Jamil's coach at Barbados. So there is a link there. But Rod Eswick was definitely one of the most influential cricketers in the Bolton area and beyond in terms of what he's gone on to do. But phenomenal cricketer. And Jamil, whilst a different player, brings that aura about him in his cricket in that very unique Bayesian style. So Eswick, of old, and latterly Jamil.
Brilliant. Look at the players that's importantly, you got Devon Conway opened up for New Zealand. Aidan Markram, come back to Manchester this year from Walkden. You've had some fantastic players. And if I think on the Wikipedia page on the Bolton League, you can see all them top players there.
Yeah.
So it's obviously fantastic to see. Next one, your favourite ground to play at in the North West Cricket League besides Social Circle.
Um, I really enjoyed going to Reed. Actually, I thought Reed is a lovely ground, really good cricket wicket. There's a little bit in it, but it's short, straight, so it kind of invites batters to go after it, but it's a bit deceptive in terms of thinking you just can. So a really picturesque ground, I really like that. I live in Atherton now, so Atherton Cricket Club is just literally 5 minutes from me walk, and Atherton's always been a wonderful cricket club, even back in the day in its association days. Really big ground, um, wonderful people down there as well. So I really like Atherton, and I couldn't not say social as well.
Yeah, I think definitely Everton, Social, and obviously Reed. They hosted the Hamer Cup final last year. If people were there, it was unbelievable game. I think Little Lever scored near enough 300, maybe more actually. I can't remember. And then Paddy coming in, Ifty absolutely smacking it. Albeit it is a small ground, but that even makes it way more competitive because that power play. It's so it's if you go
Yeah.
to it, it's fantastic grounds, wonderful.
Yeah, I agree.
Next one is your favourite cricketing memory.
Um, got a few. I know you're asking me for quick fire. So, 2009, we won the league with all social lads. All the lads at social had come through the juniors. So we had Dave Parkey as pro, who was Matt's brother. He'd come from the juniors, and we won the league in 2009 with all social lads. That was a pretty big achievement. I think Little Lever may have done it a few years after that as well. I think winning the league last year with that team and coming back and Archie part of the team, we had was a really big moment. Like, I never expected that to happen. I was coming back to try and, as I said, had a bit of value. Never thought we'd go that far. Special on many fronts. Jamil's first big title, um, and just for some of the other lads, Lewis and some of the other lads who played as well. So yeah, last year was a really really big memory for me. That.
Brilliant. And lastly, your biggest pet peeve in amateur cricket.
I've got two. So one is nobody ever wants to come and play for the experience these days in terms of taking the opportunity because they might not be getting it at their own club. Everybody asks the question of how much. I find it fascinating that that's a thing, but there we go. And the other one is social media. People pushing the social media accounts for their kids themselves. Man, it's just boring. Like, just get on with your cricket. Go and play your cricket. Go and enjoy your cricket. You don't need to show everybody. When you score runs, that'll show everybody how good you are, not what you're doing in the nets and not your throwdowns. And so I mean, maybe that's me as a grumpy old man, right? But I'm a traditionalist. Is let your bat do the talking, let your ball do the talking. You don't need your social media account to go and spout off about how good you think you are. So yeah, they're the two things I'd say we could maybe just wind in a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's variety of different things. Some people do it for drills and coaching stuff like that, and then other people do it for different things. Yeah, so I think we had quite a few things. People had side screens was one. People coming in. I think last year Jack Welsh said people coming in with big bags to the change room, especially if you've got a small change room. It's not exactly ideal, but yeah. So obviously the season starts on the 18th of April. How excited are you guys for the start of that?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I think we're ready. I said, we've had a bit of a turbulent couple of weeks, so we'll get out of that. We'll get really settled in the next couple of weeks in terms of the team. We're really clear on fixtures. It's a shame we've had a bit of a washout on our friendlies. We should have played this weekend coming. Two friendlies Saturday, Sunday, but they've been washed out, which is perfectly understandable. We've got a friendly a week on Sunday that we hope will beat the weather, but we will have to see. Um, but yeah, then we're ready to go, right? So straight into it at home against Lostock. Um, and games, as I said, every game is a competitive game of cricket in this league. So nobody takes anybody for granted. You've got to be on your game. You've got to be prepared. And we're excited about it, right? At the end of the day, we play for fun. So we're excited about it.
Exactly. Fingers crossed we get some good weather last year. I think last year we had pretty decent weather last year,
Yeah.
and Bobby, obviously you got the junior fixture in the week, and usually they'll go off. The seniors on, it's trying to best to balance them both. But yeah, I think that's all the questions I have. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we finish?
No, no, no. Just thanks for having me, Kobe. These are good little snippets and insights from around the club. So appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'll wish Social Circle and yourself the best of luck for next season.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.